Welcome everybody to the Musician's Mentor podcast. My name is Travis Mark, and today we have a special bonus episode that we did with our good friends over at the NewOrleansMusicians.com podcast. So David is your host today, and he's talking with Louisiana-born singer Karen Waldrup, who you might know as a top 5 finalist in season 25 of NBC's The Voice. As usual, if you do find these useful, please leave us a rating or review. Make sure you check out the New Orleans Musicians podcast, and make sure you leave them a rating and review too. I'm going to let them jump straight into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Karen Waldrup.
Well, my name's Karen Waldrup. I'm originally from Mandeville, Louisiana. I make country music, but I call it country soul. We have a saxophone player in the band, and we get down, when we're on stage. We really like to have a good time. And I think that's rooted in being from South Louisiana. Louisiana people have more fun than anyone. I've learned that firsthand from traveling. And I play country music, and I go where God calls me. And I have an incredible support system we call Waldrup Worldwide, which is people all over the world that support and love the music and follow me online.
That's beautiful. Yeah, Mandeville. I live out in Folsom right now.
Okay, yes. Do that.
Yeah, that's right. I've been out here for about 12, going on 13 years now. Grew up on the South Shore. Were you originally from Mandeville?
Yep, born and raised Mandeville, Louisiana. And Louisiana has been very good to me throughout my career, very steady and supportive for sure.
What about the music atmosphere when you were coming up? What was around you that, I guess, kind of lent itself towards music and drew you in, I suppose?
I think it was probably a combination of, being from South Louisiana and going down to the French Quarter with little friends. Moms brought us down. We were super young and just walking around and seeing those horns and guitars and keys, and even just people sitting on the street. You know how they do in the French Quarter, where they're sitting there with their guitar, kicking their foot pedal and singing and playing harp. And it's like, how does this person play all that at one time? It was just mesmerizing to me as a kid. So I definitely credit South Louisiana for the, as I've traveled, I've realized one of the most beautiful things of being from South Louisiana is if you're a musician from there, you kind of just do whatever you want musically. You have so much freedom. And that's pretty great. You're really not boxed in Louisiana. People love all types of music: Cajun, Creole, country, rock, pop. It's just such a pool of incredible music.
Yeah.
And I think that's really given me the freedom to kind of just write what I want, create what I want, put whatever I want on the track. I don't know. I don't really follow the rules of genre as much. And I don't think anybody from Louisiana really follows the rules.
Yeah, Karen, that's a dreaded question of mine, but I'm faced with sort of introducing some people to perhaps an audience that's never heard them before, heard their music before, is just being introduced to them now on the show. And I have to ask them sometimes, what would you describe your genre as? And I just hate doing that because it sounds like I'm pigeonholing their craft for the purposes of society or something. You know what I'm saying? But I think you make a great point in that we're so culturally diverse down here that what comes from this region is usually breaking the mold, I would say. It has a sound to it. It has a flavor to it, but it's not like anything else because it's so diverse.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. But at the same time, definitely having genre helps people to kind of know what they're about to listen to. So I get that.
Yeah. Was country music being played in your home as a child? Did you hear it? Did you have any family members that played it?
Oh, yes, very much. We were listening to country music. I actually have to credit my older sister, Rachel, for, having the taste for country music and kind of getting me into it. Back then, I remember being a very small child. I don't know if you remember, they used to do the deals where you paid for a certain amount of CDs and you got like 10 CDs or whatever. And it was like some magazine deal or whatever. And I just remember how exciting that was when she got those CDs in and we all listened to them. And there was so much joy behind that. It's crazy how different that is now. Now you can just, with the touch of your finger, listen to whatever you want worldwide on Spotify, But at the time, I just remember the thrill of that. It was like, oh my gosh. I think she got ripped off too. I think she got charged for all of them or whatever.
Anyway. I distinctly remember the same experience. I was an only child, but I remember signing up for that. It was 12 for a penny. And I told my dad what I had found in the back of a magazine was head to try. And he just kind of gave me the once over and said, "Look, son, this is a scam. This is how they scam you." I'm like, "It's a penny, Dad. How can it be a scam?" But the subsequent ones that come in automatically are like, who knows, $14-20. I forget, but yeah, I remember that. How many siblings did you have?
I have 3 sisters, so I'm one of 4 girls, and grew up in just a really great home of a lot of good music and just sweet. I had a very great childhood, and that really helped me throughout my life to just have the confidence that it takes to get all the no's that this business gives you. I'm a straight shooter, David. I'll tell you the truth. It's not always yes for me. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, sometimes it's not now. And things come back later, and that's another part of this journey that I always try to tell other artists. It's like, man, I can't tell you how many times throughout my career something has been a huge door slammed in my face, and then 5 years later, there I am opening that same door. We're getting to work with that producer, or getting to be on that TV show, or getting to be on whatever. And so I just think in this business, it just takes tough skin. You just have to wake up the next day and you have to act like it didn't happen and get back to writing and creating. And that takes a special individual. And I think that's part of the gift. When God gives you a gift to sing, He kind of gives you the tough skin to deal with the craziness of it. And sometimes I wonder, okay, why would I put up with all this? Why would I do this? And then I walk on stage and I remember why, because we have so much freaking fun.
Yeah, I think it's funny to hear other artists speak of the same instances, I suppose, because they discuss all the behind the scenes and just such a struggle that you go through, even rounding up all the pieces in your band and getting them there on time and load in and all of these things. But once everything's plugged in and kicked on and they start to play, it's like all that just kind of evaporates. And they remember every single time why they're doing it,
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel that completely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The people too. The people remind me why I do it too. They always, when they come and give me a hug or tell me a story or tell me how I impacted their lives or how they traveled 5 hours to be there, that also fires me up as well. Just to know that people care and that people love the music, and that's the only real reason that you would do it.
Yeah, that definitely touches your soul, I'm sure. Your siblings, how much of a role do you believe that they played in the diverse music that you make now, the influences? 3 other girls, right?
I think that's a great question. In fact, I've never really thought about it like that. I appreciate that for you bringing that to my awareness. My older sister was very into country music, and that was great, and that was a huge influence. And then the sister under her was definitely more into like the pop, Mariah Carey, Britney Spears kind of stuff. So that was an influence there as well, melodically, lyrically, instrumentally. And then Katie, my little sister, she has an eclectic music listening experience. She listens to a lot of hip hop and R&B. She's listening to jazz. She's listening to pop. She's listening to whatever I send her. She's open to Christian. She loves whatever you want to put on the playlist kind of listener.
Sure.
And I think that's true for a lot of people. Some people, my husband is a very one genre listener. He is a country music listener. It's very rare you're going to walk in and hear him listening to hip hop. He's probably listening to country or Christian. That's just what he likes to listen to.
Yeah.
Whereas me, you just never know what's in my headphones.
That's a beautiful thing.
You might be shocked.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful though. Even, I'll put it to you like this. The music that I listen to and the music that I write is totally different, totally separate. One doesn't resemble the other. I've interviewed musicians that they are in a specific genre and it's all their band produces, but it's not all that person listens to. It's kind of one-sided, a one-sided approach to life, I think, to remain in one vein all your life. I mean, to each his own, but there's so much more out there. And then there's also the benefit of kind of drawing the parallels between different genres, especially at their start. And I'll give you, for instance, late last year, I think it was, and somebody pointed out to me the parallels between punk music and hip hop music at their start. So we're talking about 2 genres that were born roughly around the same era, late 70s, early 80s. They were born out of urban atmospheres and oppressive societal views, if you want to put it that way. And he just started drawing all these lines for me. And I was like, that's so bizarre to me, because you would never include the two in the same conversation or expect to hear them in the same conversation. But when you think about it, there's a lot there that's shared,
Oh, absolutely. And that's interesting because I don't really listen to punk music that often, but
Yeah.
that's probably the one genre of music that I don't listen to that often. But I think everybody kind of has their one that's like, And some people say that's country for them. And then when they listen to my music, then it makes me even more like honored that I'm like, oh, you
Yeah.
crossed over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you, do you draw any kind of, I don't want to keep saying parallels, but let's just say inspiration from religious music, and maybe include some of those maybe phrasings or cadences in your own music?
It's funny you say that. Yeah, I find myself listening to Christian music a lot. I really enjoy K-Love, 97.1 Life is Crazy. And I love listening to praise and worship, just having that minute with God while I'm traveling or while I'm in the van or while I'm doing a workout or whatever. I'm cleaning the house or doing laundry or cooking or whatever. I do like the process of kind of doing tasks and also praising God. And I think that's one of the great things about Christian music. But another thing I really appreciate about Christian music is the production. I really like the vast drum sounds that they use, contemporary Christian. It just sounds so full and rich. And I
Okay.
appreciate the mixes and I appreciate the melodies, and the messaging. So I would probably say my favorite genre is probably country because I like the lyrical content and the melodies and I make country music. I would probably say my second favorite is probably Christian because I really, really love the melodies and I love the big choruses, the big stacked production.
Yes.
I think there's just such big production going on there, especially when you're tracking in a church or something.
Sure.
And then ironically, my third is probably hip hop and R&B. I really enjoy working out to Cardi B or Kevin Gates or, thug music. I don't know. I guess I am all over the place when it comes to what's in my ear, but I would say those three genres are going to be 90% of it.
Yeah. Let me ask what you think about, you mentioned R&B. What do you think about, I guess, like the story of Ray Charles, where he starts borrowing from church hymns to create soul music? Does that occur to you? Does it interest you? Is it something that you've ever encountered in your line of work?
Interesting. I don't know that I've really borrowed melodies. I don't know if I'm really into that. But there definitely has been times where I'll be like, "Ooh, I love I'll be like singing in my kitchen to a song and I'll go find what key is that? Why does my voice sound so great in that moment? And then I
Okay.
might take the key and go, okay, maybe I should write in the key of B flat, next time. I really try to not lean on other people's melodies. I just never really got into that. I don't know. I guess maybe it's part of being an artist that it makes me feel clean and honest that I created something. So
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. And I find myself to be a very honest person. I know people say, well, if you say that out loud, then you're not honest. But I do find that about myself is I like to be honest. And when I'm around my fans, I always just tell the truth. It doesn't matter what it is. They'll be like, what'd you ever do with that thing I gave you? And I'll be like, honestly, it didn't really fit for our house. I'm sorry. Like, I just tell the truth because it's just easier to tell the truth than for them to come over to the house and be asking, where is it? And then I'll have to explain why I lied. And anyway, so I just don't do all that. So I guess it makes me feel clean and cozy inside that I know 100% that my catalog, I'm not going to get sued. I really created these pieces from my heart or from some chords I put together. And that's not to say that I haven't ever gotten inspired. Don't get me wrong. There might be a groove or something for sure.
Sure. Yeah. That brings to mind a question, because this has happened to many artists before, where they will write something and then they're listening to it, playing it back, and they realize that it too closely resembles something that they have heard before. Once they spot it, they can't unhear it, and it's kind of like a wash. Like, you have to leave that one to the side. It needs more work, or it goes out, Were there ever instances where you felt like something kind of resembled another thing too closely?
Yeah, but
I mean, it happens.
Usually it's after the fact. Usually it's like years after. So I have a song called I Got That Kind of Time. And we've been playing it for 5 years, and all of a sudden this random guitar player that had just joined up with our band pointed out that it kind of sounds like that old song, I'm walking on sunshine. Oh, and so I was like, cool. So now I just sing a little of that song in the middle of it, just because I'm like, it kind of does. So, I mean, I guess somebody could sit down with a music sheet and see how close it is. I don't find it to be that close, but I find it to be close enough to be able to sing those lyrics alongside, when I perform it and kind of add texture.
Sure. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. You
like very many years after.
You had spoke about as a child being able to see the street performers and I guess the music atmosphere down here in South Louisiana. It's everywhere. It marks every occasion, every gathering, usually live, and I've always found that fascinating because I feel like when children have the opportunity to be in the presence of live music, it makes such a bigger indent in their mind in that it shows them anybody can do it. And then especially if you have family members that play music too, it's like that person is like me. They walk and talk and look and sound like me, and they're able to do this. So it inspires children to be able to do it themselves because it seems reachable for them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And did you say that anyone in your family was playing any instruments? I know we talked about their music taste and your sisters and stuff, but was anyone in your family playing music?
Well, ironically, my same older sister that seemed to have impacted my musical taste, the country music genre, the one that got scammed like you on the CDs back in the
Hey, I still have mine. I'm just saying.
90s or whatever. Yeah. You got your money out of them. You still have them.
Yes.
But anyway, she also was a huge influence because she tried to play acoustic guitar and gave up. Well, they put the acoustic guitar up in the attic. Well, then when I grew up and I asked Dad, hey, I want to play acoustic guitar, he kind of felt like, well, I've heard this before. And he's like, you can get up in the attic and get the one I bought Rachel. And if you can show me that you can play it, then we can get you one that's more for you, one that you can be proud of or whatever.
Sure.
So I get up in the attic and I get it and I bring it to guitar lessons, which I didn't know anything about guitar. In fact, the guy, you may know him, his name is Chris Eshtay. He's from the North Shore.
Okay.
And he taught me how to play guitar. He plays a lot around there. Anyway, he calls himself Brother Chris. But anyway, I brought it to church. He was our youth leader and I brought it to church and I showed it to him. And he just said, okay, well, this is a classical guitar, so we're not going to play this. So he kept bringing every time he would bring two guitars, one for me and one for him. Anyway, so he would show me kind of this and that here and there. Well, then I eventually was able to sit down with my dad and play through an entire song with the classical guitar.
Okay.
And that was his challenge to me, is if I could show that I had rhythm and I could put my fingers in the right place. He wasn't afraid to spend the money. He just didn't want to get back in the same situation he was in before, where my sister kind of put it up in the attic.
Sure. Yeah.
Which I'm very glad he didn't sell it after she stopped playing it. I'm glad that he at least was smart enough to put it in the attic. But when you put a guitar in the attic, it probably got very damaged, especially in South Louisiana.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about a nice instrument. We're talking about something that was thrown in the attic, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't know enough about music or guitars to even know not to put it in a hot space. So we're talking a very limited guitar knowledge, but parents that are good enough to know that involving your kids and stuff keeps them out of trouble. So I sat down and I played Heartaches on Me by the Dixie Chicks.
Okay.
I loved that record. It was one of those records that my sister got. So that period of my life is crucial. That 15, 16 years old was huge for me.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so then I got a guitar and I started going to guitar lessons. Well, then my parents decided they were going to go celebrate their anniversary in New Orleans. Well, we decided we were going to go ahead and go to New Orleans as well. And we got in an accident, a car accident. And anyway, you can imagine how pissed off my parents were.
Yeah.
So I got grounded for 3 months. And the only thing I could do was play guitar and go to cheerleading and school and church. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. And I played that guitar. And honestly, looking back, it was such a blessing that
Really?
that we got that. Yeah, we got in that accident, because if we hadn't gotten the accident and we would have gone downtown and we would have been safe and we would have came home and gotten away with it, I would have never had that 3 months of basically boot camp of learning because I couldn't leave my bedroom. I mean, my dad was pissed and he didn't freaking give up either. It was 3 months in that bedroom, come home from school, go to your room. I think I even had to eat in my room. I mean, I was grounded.
Yes.
Because I could have gotten killed. I was 16 years old going to Bourbon Street. That's not okay, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm very thankful that I had a guitar teacher, and 3 months of no life to learn how to play the basic guitar elements and catch up to speed because I hadn't been playing. I was like 16. So I felt like I'd kind of missed out on a few years. You know, I felt kind of late to the game, but anyway, and then I just fell in love with the instrument. I fell in love with the writing and the creation and the expression of it. And then I literally got sucked in and if I was 16 years old and I was looking at myself right now, you know, living in a house paid for by music with a car paid for by music and a van to pull the band around, I just never would have dreamed that I would have been able to do all this for music. And it's just all goes back to this. The people want to have conversations all the time, which kind of gets annoying, but it really goes back down to the music every single time. And I don't care what people say. It really, really has to be there. The song, the music, the element, the connectivity to the people.
So that's the origin story of how you started playing music. Were you writing before, like say poetry or just scribblings in a notebook? Were you writing anything that could have maybe been considered lyrics on down the road, poetry and whatnot?
Yeah, that's funny you say that. You're asking me so many questions that no one's ever asked me before, and these are great introspective thinking questions. And it goes back to being a child, and I was writing poetry, and I was always kind of good at writing, and I was always good at speech and good at creative things, even in, you know, as a young kid. And like, you know, they do that like that very beginner where you get like a recorder and they kind of show you notes and they, you know, you're so young, you're 8 years old playing a plastic recorder, you know?
Yes.
I was always kind of good at that. Like I was good at the recorder, you know, I was good at a harmonica. I just kind of was always good at the creative things. I can't say I'm good at all things. You know, I had challenges with other subjects for sure, but or music was always just kind of a thing. And it's funny because everybody wants to talk so negatively about music all the time. And that hurts because music is the only thing besides Jesus Christ that has been there for me through everything and has never walked away.
Sure. You know, it is a shame. I think that more than one thing comes to mind, but immediately, I think the negative aspects of music, if there are any, or what people might say, all come from, I guess, the business side of music, really. Because I mean, music itself to me is divine, and there is no substitute for music. Music is divine, and as far as I'm concerned, it's the greatest thing ever, right? I mean, it's the one thing that can give me goosebumps. Doesn't matter. It could be the same song, but it just happens, and it just feels unbelievable to me. But also, I guess I wanted to point out, because we were kind of intertwining that with you as a child and beginning in music, I kind of feel like it's a domino effect, right? Where the child that is exposed to the arts becomes a greater thinker, because it let's just say, for lack of a better term, tickles parts of our brain that wouldn't be stimulated normally by anything else going on around them, you know? So
now I really like that. What was that? I'm going to write that down. A child that's exposed to music becomes a better thinker.
I believe so. I believe it's like a domino effect. I believe that we use parts of our brains to receive and create music that would not normally be used in everyday dealings, playing or talking or running or any of the things that a child might do, even problem solving, you know? And there are parts of the brain that are used for music that aren't used for much else. So I think if you catch it early on and you expose a child to it early on, just like you said, a recorder, super simple, you know, but it awakens something in their minds, and it inspires thought processes that I don't think would normally be there, you know?
I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that too, because my sister, one of my sisters, has a child that literally comes to mind. I'm like, next time I talk to her, I'm going to be like, hey, how can we get him involved in a very basic instrument? Because he's very young. You know, how can we even a ukulele or something. Let's get them going.
Yeah, my fingers are crossed. I've got a 9-year-old and he's got a keyboard in his room, which only gets used occasionally. And then we did violin recently, but the Folsom, believe it or not, music department is not robust. So
I can imagine.
How was it for you? That brings that to mind. In Mandeville, what was the school system, the support system for music like for you? What was your personal experience?
Yeah. So, first of all, Folsom, I'm familiar because I used to go out. Have you ever driven by Money Hill, the golf course?
Yeah.
Been out there? Man, it's gorgeous out there. Anyway, when I was 16 years old, I used to go out there and drive around the beverage cart and sell beer to the golf, or maybe it's 18. I was, maybe I was in college, but anyway, selling beer and snacks and all that. So I'm very familiar with Folsom. Side note. Back to the conversation.
Sure.
So Mandeville, Fontainebleau High was definitely, we were definitely blessed in the way that we were, we had what we needed, but we didn't have too much. The kids weren't like super rich, but they also weren't like super poor. It was kind of like right in the middle,
Yeah.
And so we had a great choir department. But however, we did not have a show choir. And that's the one thing I kind of wish I would have been upset. I would have been that girl. I would have been absolutely obsessed with show choir if I could have done that. That would have been just dancing and singing and expressing and just that to me, watching that sounds like so much fun. But for me, I was limited because we didn't have show choir to just normal choir, guitar lessons, singing in church, stuff like that. So I'm not complaining because, I had what I needed and I had a guitar and I had a great choir teacher. Her name was Miss Moss. And anybody who's been around the Fontainebleau North Shore same time period that I was there remembers Miss Moss. She was the most incredible teacher that had the most love for her gift that she was giving us and has no idea the impact that she made on my life. I don't know that I was the best singer, but I was a cheerleader. And she pulled me aside and told me that if I kept cheerleading, that I would lose my precious voice.
Really?
Screaming like that, all the time.
Yeah.
And I've always been a good problem solver. And so just right there, private in her office, I said, well, what if I just don't use my voice? What if I just fake it? And she said, well, I've been teaching here a long time and I've never had anybody had that idea. Said, but if you want to do that, you can, but I'm just warning you, your voice is very precious and you're out there screaming at the top of your lungs. So after that conversation, I never used my actual voice. I only used my body, lifting the other girls up, shaking pom-poms. And I tried to overcompensate by like making more banners than the other girls, painting more than the other girls, trying to make up for it in other ways. Cause I knew that I was kind of taking away from the thing. Anyway, so I had my 4 cheerleading friends show up at last year in July of 2024, and I finally came clean.
Oh, they didn't know all that time?
Nobody ever caught me. No, I got away with it. I cheered all 4 years in high school. I got away with it. I think I mouthed it for 3 of the 4 years.
Well, I think that's why Miss Moss was your favorite teacher, because she kept your secret all this time too.
My secret. But then she was also just really good at knowing your voice and when you needed to move from second soprano to first soprano and when you needed to be challenged to move into alto. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't know how to harmonize because my junior year, she's giving me all these solos. So I thought I was Miss Thang. Well, then she pulls me back into that same office and says, hey, I'm moving you to second soprano. And I started crying because I was a kid and I didn't understand. I have a high range. Why would you do this? This doesn't make any sense. Well, and she just told me, she was like, you won't ever develop your ear unless you sing a different part. So she moved me to second soprano. And I was always so jealous of the girls that were in the first because they got to sing the high parts and all that. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I can sing with any band. I can get up and sing harmony. Like I'm really good at harmony because she made me sing that damn second soprano for 2 years.
Yeah.
So she knew that I had kind of mastered the skill naturally of singing high. Like I could sing high, good job, check. But we're in high school to learn and to grow. And so she moved me into a place that worked on my weakness, which is my ear.
Nice.
And it strengthened my ear big time. I can't say I have the best ear, but I do have a good vocal ear. I'm challenged in guitar, like my ear with guitar or with keys, or knowing, okay, wait, should we move this or whatever? But at least I have the tools, like different apps and stuff, to change the key or whatever. So I can make my weakness work, or text a friend or something.
Hey, everybody. If you've enjoyed this episode so far, please come on over to NewOrleansMusicians.com podcast to catch part 2. While you're there, you might want to subscribe so that you can be alerted to new episodes featuring Louisiana musicians and music industry professionals. I'd like to give a special shout out to Travis Mark at Musicians Mentor Podcast for having us on with this bonus episode. And I look forward to seeing you all at NewOrleansMusicians.com podcast. Thanks.